Hello, my name is Bir Singh Khalsa. I'm a yoga researcher based at Harvard Medical School in Boston, Massachusetts, in the US. And my expertise has been in conducting research trials on the benefits of yoga and also giving lectures on the biomedical science behind how yoga works. And so that's what I'm hoping to share with you today. So when we talk about yoga, we are really referring to a multi-component practice in the traditional form of yoga. That includes not only the physical postures and exercises, or the so-called asanas, but it also includes the breathing techniques, the pranayama practices. It also includes the practice of deep relaxation. And very importantly, it includes meditative component, the focus of attention in the practice of meditation. So these four components are what you usually get when you attend and practice a traditional form of yoga. Many people may adopt additional practices and adopt what we would call a yoga lifestyle, in which people would then also adopt a yogic diet and live in a community or an ashram. And there are many institutes around the world that offer many types of yoga training. So these four practices all have specific benefits. And on the physical level, the physical postures actually are different than Western aerobic type exercises. They're focused more on stretching, they're focused on balance, they're much more isometric in nature. And the actual postures themselves have a mind-body effect. In other words, there's a sense of release of tension in the body, which is correlated with a psychological change. The physical practice of the breathing techniques, the most common one is the long, slow, deep breathing, so-called yogic breathing pattern. And we know from very strong research now that slow breathing has direct impacts on the stress systems in the body, both the autonomic nervous system as well as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Slow breathing will calm the autonomic nervous system, reduce sympathetic drive, enhance parasympathetic activity, and reduce levels of the stress hormone cortisol. And this is very beneficial for circumstances such as chronic stress. So on that physical level, we can call this sort of the whole the fitness aspect in which all of these components of yoga are improving. The relaxation is releasing the tension in the muscles, again, through the mind-body effect, having benefits on meditative effect. And when one engages in the meditative practice of focusing the attention, that also generates a relaxation effect in the body. Now, one of the key benefits of all of these practices is what we call self-regulation. The ability over time with these practices to be able to self-regulate internal state. And by internal state, we're talking about both physical, physiological state, as well as psychological state. And that is self-regulation of both stress and emotion. And this is extremely valuable. This is probably one of the most well-known and well-characterized benefits of yoga practice. It's one of the major reasons why people come to yoga practice, is this ability to be able to manage stress more effectively and to be able to respond to emotion more effectively. And over time, with regular practice, this becomes a skill and develops the characteristic of what we call resilience to stress and emotional equanimity, the ability to manage the ups and downs of emotions over the course of life and from day to day. So this can be very effective, especially for people who are under what we call chronic stress, or even helping people to deal with acute stressors. And as I mentioned, the research in this area is very strong. We have very good evidence from a number of review papers summarizing many studies showing not only reductions in perceived stress from psychological instruments, but also quantitative studies showing reductions in stress hormone levels, improvements in heart rate variability, reductions in sympathetic drive. Now, another feature of yoga that largely comes from the meditative component is what we call mind-body awareness, which has also become very popularly known as mindfulness. When one focuses one's attention in meditation, you are engaging the attention networks in the brain. And what happens is that you develop a skill of holding your attention, the ability of maintaining attention. And that improvement in the attention networks increases your level of mindfulness. Now, what happens in the meditative process is when you focus your attention, there are intrusions of mind wandering. And many people actually spend most of their time mind wandering. And what happens in meditation is that that mind wandering ceases when you are successfully holding your attention. And we know from mechanistic studies that there are direct connections between the attention networks in the prefrontal cortex and the emotional brain of the limbic system, such that when you engage in these meditative practices over the short term and certainly over the long term, you actually quiet down the limbic system. In fact, we know from some studies that long-term meditators actually have a structurally smaller limbic system. The amygdala is actually smaller because there is self-regulation occurring. And this is a very important feature of the meditative component of yoga practice. Not only does it work on the stress and emotion systems, but this increase in mind-body awareness or mindfulness allows us to become more aware of our internal state. And awareness of our internal state is the first step in actually being able to make changes. So if we become aware of how stressed we are then in a position to start to reduce that level of stress. The other thing that comes from yoga practice over time, and this will happen over a longer period of time with regular practice, is an improvement in deeper levels of experience, this unitive state of consciousness, what we could call spirituality. Over time, during the meditative experience, you will experience the state of oneness or unity, the sense of being at one with everything. That's a very deep and profound experience, and it can actually be life-changing for many individuals. So all of these practices together, because they cut across such a wide swath of human functioning behavior, yoga practice leads to changes across a wide spectrum of human functioning and behavior. So on the gross level, from physical activity and performance, academic performance, to deeper levels of emotion regulation, being able to manage stress more effectively, being able to manage the ups and downs of emotions more effectively, to the deepest levels of human experience, which is this deeper state of unity, of oneness. Now, because yoga is working across these many levels of human functioning, it's optimizing human functioning in many levels. And one of the areas, of course, it's optimizing, as I've mentioned, is emotional function. And in these times, with the stress we're experiencing, anxiety and stress are targets that yoga can provide benefit with. And we have a body of research evidence on that. Another area, of course, in human physiology is immune functioning. And what we know about immune functioning is that on the physical level, an existing disease or challenge to the body can actually weaken immune functioning. So for example, what we're seeing today is that those people that are most at risk for serious complications with the COVID virus is people who have an existing condition, because that has compromised the body's health. And so that can weaken the immune system, and therefore these people are more susceptible. Other physical stressors that can impair immune function are things like poor diet, smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, and one that is very critical that most people are not aware of is poor sleep. The lack of sleep actually impairs immune function. There are now very strong studies showing that our immune function is impaired when we do not get enough sleep. And typically humans need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep per night. So that's a very important feature that we know about in terms of immune functioning. There is now a whole field called psychoneuroimmunology. And this field talks about the relationship between psychological state, particularly stress and motion, and the impact on immune function. So we now have very strong evidence that chronic stress in particular can impair and inhibit immune function. And we have observed these changes at the molecular and cellular level. So how does yoga fit into this? Well, as we've mentioned, yoga is very good at reducing stress. It's very good at coping with emotion. And it's also very good at increasing mind-body awareness, which can indirectly change lifestyle behavior. So this is an indirect way in which these yoga practices may improve immune functioning. The mind-body awareness and mindfulness encourages healthy behaviors because As you become more mindful of your body, you're aware of the positive benefits of proper exercise, hydration, proper diet, and proper sleep. And so people who are adopting a yoga lifestyle will start to respect their body and care for their body, optimize its more function to get these proper features of diet, hydration, and sleep. Furthermore, this increased awareness will also drive people away from negative behaviors such as excessive alcohol and smoking, because you become very sensitive to these negative impacts, and therefore you start to avoid them. So this improvement in mind-body functioning overall reduces the risk factors for disease, and so therefore, again, indirectly improves immune functioning. And one area of research that is really for the future of yoga research is, do these practices, do these asanas and breathing techniques and meditation have actually a direct stimulating effect on immune function, as opposed to just disinhibiting the negative effects of stress and emotion? So in terms of the evidence that we have for these features of yoga to improve immune functioning, one area is actually looking at life-threatening immune-related diseases. So there are a number of studies that have been shown in AIDS and cancer that these patients, when they've practiced a yoga intervention, have actually shown improvements in specific metrics of immune function, natural killer cell activity, for example, in cancer patients. There is actually a recent review that was published in 2018 called Yoga and the Immune System Functioning, a systematic review of randomized controlled trials. And that review found 15 randomized controlled trials and suggests that yoga practice may have beneficial effects on cell-mediated immunity. It may hold potential for the treatment of diseases such as AIDS or for enhancing immune function in general, counteracting, for example, suppressions of immune function in stressful situations. Another interesting study that was published in 2015 in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine was a paper reporting on a study done in university students. And what they found in the title of this paper was Regular Yoga Practice Improves Antioxidant Status, Immune Function, and Stress Hormone Releases in Young, Healthy People. And what they found was actual improvements after the intervention in markers of immune function, specifically IL-12 and IFN gamma in serum. And these were significantly increased after the yoga intervention. As I also mentioned, these markers have been viewed at the molecular level. And so there was a paper published in 2013 in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology entitled Yogic Meditation Reverses NF-kappa B and IRF-related transcriptome dynamics in leukocytes of family dementia caregivers in a randomized controlled trial. And these dementia caregivers are under high levels of chronic stress. And what they found in this study were that 68 genes were actually changed by the yogic meditation intervention in that study. 19 genes were upregulated and 48 genes were downregulated. And the genes that were improved were some of those that are involved in immune function. So the final thing I wanted to share was one of the most fundamental practices in yoga and pranayama. And that is simple, slow yogic breathing combined with meditative practice. So we can share this together very briefly. The best way to do this is to sit upright with your spine comfortably straight, or you can actually do this lying down on your back. And what you want to do is start to breathe more slowly through the nose. And what we like to adopt is the yogic breathing style in which the abdomen is involved. So as you inhale, as you begin to inhale, the abdomen extends out first, the belly. It's also called belly breathing. As the abdomen extends out, and then you continue, and then the chest opens up a little bit, and then the shoulders will rise up a little bit. Now you are complete on the inhale. As you exhale, you let the chest and the shoulders collapse, and then you finally conclude by pulling the navel, the belly in a little bit. And then you repeat this cycle. And what you're doing is actually creating this wave of activity in the torso, so that the belly moves out, then the chest collapses, and the belly moves in. So it's a wave-like motion that's happening in the body. So start that kind of breathing pattern through the nose. And it helps in this practice if you're able to close your eyes, because we are very visual, and this quiets the mind a little bit and facilitates the meditative component. So begin to breathe very slowly. Take your time on the inhale. Very slowly inhale. And now very slowly exhale, letting the chest collapse first. And now finishing the exhale by pulling the navel point in. Once again, begin the inhale, letting the belly expand. Now opening up the chest. And then continue the exhale. Now continue this long, slow breathing pattern. And ideally, you want to be breathing at anywhere from 4 to 6 breaths per minute. Now, as you continue this breathing pattern, we're now going to focus our attention on the breath. And you can choose any aspect of the breath that you like. You can choose the sound of the breath, the feeling in your chest, the temperature of the air in the nostrils. And just focus on that target, whether it's the sound or the feeling or the physical sensation. And continue this long, slow, deep breathing pattern. And as you do this, also be aware of your physical body. Relax any physical muscles that you might be holding tense. Continue long, slow, deep breathing. Taking your time. And then if your mind wanders, simply bring it back to the breath. This is normal. The mind will always intrude with mind wandering, with thoughts of what you have to do or what you have done. But you just release those thoughts and bring your mental focus back to the breath. Slow, long, deep breathing. And now when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. So that is just a very brief instruction. You can, of course, find videos online that teach slow breathing and teach meditation practices. So these are widely available on the internet. But this is the most fundamental practice. This whole slow breathing with meditation can be very, very powerful. It's something that can be done in virtually any circumstance. You can sit on a bus. You can sit in a car. You can sit in a lobby. It's very easy to do. It doesn't require any equipment. And of course, a full yoga practice where you're doing the postures as well would enhance your experience as well. And it's very important to learn from a teacher, because you want to do these practices properly. But once you've learned from a teacher, there are manuals and DVDs and online educational sessions where you can then continue your practice at home on your own. The other thing about these practices is that though this can be done formally, sitting down for 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day, it can also be done on the fly, so-called mindfulness as lived. So keeping your focus on your flow of sensation, on the flow of thought, is a target of meditation. So meditation can be done in action and provide benefits that way. So I hope that this has been instructive, and I hope that you're able to engage in some of these practices to improve your anxiety, improve your stress management, and importantly, therefore also improve your immune status. Thank you for listening.